everyone. Welcome to the Self-Awareness Journey podcast. I'm Melissa Albers.
And I'm JJ Parker. This podcast is for seekers, seekers of happiness and joy, seekers of a centered approach to success in life, seekers of their true, authentic selves.
Get ready for some real talk on everything from anxiety, emotions, and habits to love, compassion, and forgiveness. We know you'll be challenged and enlightened by this conversation. We're so glad you're here. Let's dive in. JJ, in a rare flip-flop of roles, guess what?
What?
I am starting our podcast.
That's awesome. How are you going to start it? I'm looking forward to this.
I read another HBR review. Is that Harvard Business Review? HBR, yes. Harvard Business Review article on burnout. And it was so good that I just am really excited for us to talk about that today.
Excellent. On the heels of a conversation with you yesterday about
why do you gotta toss me under the bus? You're such a tosser under the busser.
Yesterday it was just everything I could do to just not hit record during your giant burnout rant. Just release that.
It was a rant. It was a rant.
It was rare form too. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, zip it.
So
I take a lot of energy to keep a lot of that stuff really under wraps. I wasn't in the mood to do any of that.
So Melissa, why are you feeling so burnt out?
I've been working a little much.
So you keyed on this article and we're excited to talk about it, mostly because I think you are also experiencing some of these symptoms of burnout.
As the coach, it's way easier for me to say, oh, let me tell you the number of people that are experiencing this. Okay, fine. It's me. And it's a number of people. It's actually everywhere. So I'm excited.
My favorite part of this is when we were talking about it, just like the hypocrisy of the entire thing.
Oh, shut up. It's not true.
All right.
Okay, fine. It's true.
First question.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what causes burnout.
Yeah.
Like what causes it?
I love it.
I mean, your experience, my experience, and the internet's experience.
Well, the internet's experience and not Chat GPT experience.
I didn't even ask AI at all anything about this pod.
That's good. Okay. That's good. I feel like we need to put fences around you with that Chat GPT during podcasts. We want your thoughts. All right. Well, actually, a number of things cause burnout. But this is what's very interesting to me, first and foremost. Burnout is not the same thing as exhaustion. Okay? So when I originally read that article, I saw that title, and also coming from a place of being very tired because I had such a crazy busy week, I was like, oh, is this burnout? I must be burned out. I actually wondered about that. I'm not even remotely burned out. I'm specifically tired over something, but I feel better knowing this now because it's not the same thing. Okay, so burnout is not exhaustion. That's what I want to start with, okay? Now, can you answer your own question? Because I thought that was good, but I didn't have an answer for it.
My own question of what? Oh, what is burnout?
You just...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like you're tired, you're irritable, like you don't maybe...
okay.
What is it, right? What is it?
Got it.
What is it? How does it manifest? Maybe is a better question I have for you. But like to me, it like manifests with like I don't know, like you kind of like you're either disengaged or hyper engaged in the wrong thing, or just irritable at everything and like negative thoughts about everything or attitudes. Like you get real grumpy at your customers or your family
and your partner. You're suggesting that I was like that yesterday because I feel like you're saying that.
No, a little bit.
No, okay. Okay, according to this article, there are actually 6 sources of burnout. And I think you just kind of touched on like a bunch of them without even maybe realizing that. So do you think it'd be fun to go through these 6 specifically?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Here are some of the sources of burnout. And there were 6 listed. And the reason it's important for us to capture these 6 in this conversation is because at the end, there's a 2-minute checklist that you can do for yourself at any time. And I just thought this was super helpful because here the coach in me is coming out. And it's like, oh, this is a really good snapshot. Like, put the cookies on the bottom shelf. How can I assess myself?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Workload. And the workload piece is how sustainable is your workload? So obviously we all have peaks and valleys, but the workload, how sustainable is it?
Yeah. So if you're kind of in a position where maybe your team's chronically understaffed, or there's this way you're always feeling behind. There's never a break or any, or maybe there isn't that up and down in workload, and it's just constant, and it's just too much to deal with.
Yeah, and you lie to yourself and say, no, I just have to find more time. I just have to, or I have 18 direct reports. I can do that. And it's like, no, you can't do that. You can't do that.
So,
because it's sustainably too much work.
Yeah. So the interesting thing there is you were talking about how burnout is not exhaustion.
Right.
Or being exhausted and being burnt out are separate. Yep. Although I would think about, like, if your workload is too high, you might be exhausted.
Yeah.
You might just not have enough energy to put in to get it done.
Yeah. And you could tell yourself, if singly, out of all these 6 items, if you are so busy all the time with work, you may think that you're totally burned out, but what you really are is exhausted, right? You're not burnout, meaning a more global,
so
position.
When I think about like the difference there, it's like if I was running, for a while, I might get to the point where I'm exhausted. Exactly. Then I could just stop for a little while, and then I could start running again, like with little effort, right? So, kind of what you're saying with exhaustion is that, like, rest, you can recover from exhaustion, whereas burnout, you're not going to be able to recover, or it would take a lot longer.
Right, because you're fully depleted. You're not just in the moment exhausted. Yeah. Okay, I'm ready for the next one. Values. So this is interesting. I never even thought about this. You can get led to burnout if what you do in your work doesn't connect you to your values on a deeper level. I thought that was really interesting.
That is interesting.
Here's how I thought about it. So and you know this, I love what I do. I feel very, like I'm in my spot. I'm doing what I'm meant to do to help people. And I really do love it. And when I have like a coaching conversation with someone, and it's just a really deep conversation, it just makes me feel so good. Like, I love that. So for me, my work definitely attaches to deeper values. I remember a time I worked at this place once, and we got taken over by a whole new company, and the value system of that new company was absolutely awful. Okay. And I was running a regional office, and we had, back in the day, we had a Pitney Bowes postage meter machine. Do you remember those? Probably not. Okay. And what you would do is you would preload it with money. You'd go to the post office, load it with money. Okay, so it had so then you could do your marketing, right? You can send out.
Yeah, no one knows what you're even talking about. Like, this is like a stamp machine. It would automatically, so you could mail things in the mail.
Yes. Okay, fine. Okay, fine. I'm a
No, it's awesome.
dinosaur.
Like
Okay. All right.
all I've got in my head
All
is
right.
like, do you remember that '80s movie, like Secret of My Success with like Michael J. Fox? It's like the most '80s
Yes.
tastic like business movie ever.
80s tastic.
That's what this situation is. Hostile takeover.
Okay. 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 So this company, like, so I was on my way out because I was like, I can't work
Mm.
here. These people are not, they don't have the same values
Hmm.
as me. I can't do it. I just can't do it. And so we had like $300 left on this machine, which was a lot. We had already paid
Uh-huh.
for it. Okay. And me being, judicious with the money, I was like, we're going to use that up before we send that machine
Mm.
back. So they sent me a message, Melissa, you will send the Pitney Bowes machine back immediately. And I was like, nope, not till we use the money, not till we use the
So you
postage.
send a bunch of
And so
stuff in the mail.
so then they very aggressively sent me an empty box.
Mm.
They sent me an empty box with labels, and they said send it back. And I said no, I'm not doing it till we use up the postage. The next thing I know, my VP of sales, Melissa, I don't know why you're being so challenging with this Pitney Bowes machine. Would you please send it back? And I said, well, I will after we do our next big mailing. And he said, here's the deal. They're going to withhold your commission until you send it back. Right? That is an example of that place. I was in a sheer burnout position. I hated the company. I was fried. They didn't value anything I did. And that would be an example.
And then you're holding on to this one thing.
You a-holes, watch this.
I love that because
I was
like
young.
you also burnt like way more than $300 in like everyone's salary worrying about the Pitney Bowes machine.
Exactly. Felt very good, actually. Okay. Okay. Moving on. Are you ready for the next one?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. The next one is reward. So one of the sources that can lead to your burnout is a reward, and that would be like the financial part of what you get in your job, right? So it could be not just your salary, but bonuses or whatever, commissions.
Sort of like your total comp, like how,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
even how flexible your workplace is or what your vacation stuff looks
Exactly.
like, or do you feel like valued for your work?
Yes. Yeah. Is it an equal exchange, as I always say? It's an equal exchange of energy that you're putting in. Do you feel you're energetically getting back? Okay. There's three more. So I'll go through because I know you have some comments too. Control.
Haha.
One of the sources of control is our own level of autonomy in our role.
Yep. This one I think about a lot because as a person who optimizes for autonomy, I know that like it's
Same.
really hard if I, not just because I'm like some sort of control freak, which probably am,
But in a
in
nice
a very
way.
nice way. But yeah, I know when I don't have autonomy, that really stresses me out. So,
Yeah.
and then I think about how does everyone in my company, how are they empowered to have autonomy so they can,
Do
do their
thing.
thing, self-direct, do we have like the proper like trust in place to allow them to be autonomous?
I see this in people's roles all the time, especially now because post-COVID, the workplace still just isn't back to quote what it was before. I won't say normal anymore because there's no such thing. But you know how everybody would just show up 8 to 5 or 8:30 to 4:30 or whatever it was. And everybody had their place, everybody had their desk, everybody took their lunch, everybody did their same things. They went for meals in the same spot. Now everything's different. And I think as a result of that, a lot of the lines have gotten blurred about how stuff gets done in companies. Maybe they don't have a receptionist anymore. Maybe they don't have the same roles that they did. So people are kind of cross pollinating a little bit or feeling at least anxious that things aren't going to be the same. And there's still the level of responsibility, but now there's also a lack of authority in some of those pieces. So you have more pressure because you feel like it still has to get done, but you don't really know. You don't really know if you're more responsible for it or is somebody else going to be. Like, that's happening a lot, even in not just corporate, but I'm seeing it in all different kinds of places, restaurants. You know, I mean, that's real. People that have roles, their roles are all kind of messy right now.
Yeah, so a thing that could definitely lead to burnout is like unclear expectations, right? Expectations of
Yeah.
yourself or others or what you think others expect of you, and when that's not clear, that becomes pretty stressful.
Yeah, I mean, it really does, and you see it all over the place. And I actually think even it comes into our families, because if we're working in situations that are not typical for us anymore, or we don't feel like, even if we've had the same role for a long time, and then we come home at night and we're tired because it just doesn't, everything's a little more challenging, then it comes into the family, right? I mean, it hits us in all different spots that we're not even really recognizing. So yeah, so that's another one. So control. So far we've said workload, values, rewards, control, and the next one is fairness. I thought this was interesting. So this leads to burnout, or can, is, do you feel you're being treated equitably?
So if you have like a peer that's doing basically the same job as you, but they maybe like get some special treatment, they get paid more, they get more vacation days, they get less workload. All those things would feel unfair.
Yeah.
Which would definitely lead to burnout.
Yeah. I hadn't thought about that, but everybody has favorites, don't you think?
Yeah, probably. I mean, that's like a whole episode right there.
I know. Everybody has favorites, and whether you're good at masking it or not, you do too.
Oh, yeah.
Not you, JJ, but just everybody has favorites.
No, everyone knows at work who's my favorite.
It's John Riley, isn't it?
Well, I mean, you're right. It's it's kind of just human nature to kind of like go back. The people who you connect with a little better than others. It's more fun to go interact with them, and
and easier.
Yeah, and easier. So it's
so much
like
easier.
Those sort of bonds just happen. Not like on purpose, like you're trying to exclude others and favor some and exclude others. But exactly. You just have a natural affinity to some people more easily than others, and that looks like favoritism sometimes.
Yeah. So as they're talking about the fairness factor as it relates to burnout, I think we all intrinsically understand what this is, because we all do this in our own right. And yet, if we're on the short end of that stick, that doesn't feel good, and it can be emotionally wearing, because it's a different thing, what we know versus how we think about it, right? So I think that's really interesting. And then the last one is community, and that is the community that you have for your professional relationships. And I thought that was interesting because, again, I hadn't thought about it as particularly as this, but I think that this is really true too, is that if we have sort of our group that we're used to having, that we would go to for challenges, issues, if we're feeling a little tired. I've been thinking a lot about that recently, because I just had one of my clients pass away. Actually, I've had 2 clients pass away in the last 3 months. And also just people are retiring. I'm 56, and I have a circle that is for people that are 65 or 70 or 30, 40 or whatever. It's a broad range, but I'm seeing the community is always shifting. But for some reason, maybe because of these 2 people that have passed away recently, I've sort of looked at it in a bit of a different way. And I think we all have professional relationships that come and go. But when those change outside of your control, there is a feeling of loss, sadness, and it shifts. It can be exhausting to have those feelings.
Yeah, and for me, I'm part of Vistage, which is the CEO roundtable thing, and people always say like, it's lonely at the top, which is totally true. It's if you're
Yeah.
a founder or something that's like a C level, it's hard to find peers a lot of times.
Totally. Yep,
And so
that's
I
true.
I totally get that, because there was a while where I felt like very alone, and it was not healthy. It was pretty like tough.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, finding those professional groups can really help. And I've seen it in my own team, like when people find their professional group, you can totally tell that their energy shifts.
Absolutely.
And it's
Yes.
great. It's great to see. So you can
Yeah.
actually see that in
Yep.
people if they're really struggling. One of the suggestions could be, hey, you should go find a peer group, because I bet those peers are struggling with very similar things as you are, and
Exactly.
just sort of commiserating in that can be helpful.
Sometimes it makes you feel better. So, yeah. And I agree with you. Before I summarize that, I agree with you. I think that it isn't just like you mentioned, being in your role, but it's also
Hmm.
solopreneurs. It's also people that are starting new
Hmm.
jobs that don't have that connection to their everyday people anymore. And that's very, very hard and a huge adjustment. It could be people that are not doing well in their jobs at the moment, where other people are doing really well. So they feel very
Hmm.
isolated. So there's just a number of places where that piece comes into play. And I hadn't really considered it like that until I read this
Yeah.
article. So anyway, so here's what this is suggesting. Or, well, first of all, before I go to that piece, did you have any? You had said that you had some stuff that you were thinking about. Did I just trounce
No, you're
all
all
over
good.
you? And
Um,
okay, okay. I know it's such a role
I
reversal.
know.
You usually are.
I'm not used to being on
I
this
told
side of
ya.
the coin. Well, yeah. Well, I just, when I think about burnout, I want to talk about like what are some of the symptoms. Like we kind of
Yeah,
covered
we should
that.
talk
Like
about
we
that.
talked about,
Mm,
and then the other thing
hmm
is that what I've noticed is, people who are burnt out or on their way to burnout, it
hmm
manifests itself in a whole variety of different ways, right?
I feel like I'm gonna get in trouble right
No,
now.
but there's sort of like the mental manifestations of it, right? People are like
Yeah.
irritable, less engaged, all
hmm
that. But then
hmm
like there's physical manifestations. You can tell people, like
Absolutely.
you can see people who are on the burnout train, they're like getting headaches, they get sick maybe more frequently than
Yeah.
normal. So it really
100%.
starts to
They're
yeah,
tired.
tired. They stop taking care of themselves, right? Start
Yep.
eating like crap, stop
hmm
exercising, and this is all because they're on the burnout train. So you can
Yeah. And
see it.
yep, I agree.
Um, and really for me, it's like, how can we help? How can we see this in other people? And how can we
hmm
help them
Yeah.
get get off that track?
Yeah. I agree with you. And it's really hard because I think when you're in the throes of it, when something has really got you off, and it is physically
Yeah.
exhausting. Like, because this week, so we're recording this on Friday. So this week has been incredibly, incredibly busy
Hmm.
for me because I've got a busy couple of weeks coming up with big group events all stacked on top of each other. So trying to get out ahead of it, and the detail of that just about
Hmm.
kills me because I'm just not a detail person, as you know. But here's how I was feeling. Um, so physically drained from the mental exercise of chaining myself to the details for hours at a
Hmm.
time that I was achy.
Mm.
My shoulders ached, my legs ached, um, everything ached from sitting in place. And my arm was reaching across to where my
Hmm.
trackpad is. So my arm was sore,
Yeah.
literally, from holding it out for hours as I was working on,
Yep.
because I wasn't using correct posture. But anyway, um, so like at like 8 o'clock at night when it's dark, I'm like, you know what? I'm going for a walk. I can't even take it. So I went out and walked 3 miles practically in the dark because I needed that so much. But I did not want to do that. I did not want to do that. I wanted to just go face down into a bunch of guacamole and chips.
That'd be okay too.
Yeah, I know. I know. Not going to lie. I didn't have any guacamole otherwise.
So when we see this happening in other people, which I think everyone's like pretty good at seeing, it's hard to see it in ourselves because it's like a slow build up, right?
Slow burn.
But it's pretty easy to see it starting in other people. So from my very recent experience of challenging you on this idea, it's not well received. So
it was.
What suggestions do you have? Like, how do you bring up this conversation with someone like your work colleague, your friend, your partner? Like, hey, I think we're getting to a point where you're like getting a little burnt out. How do you approach that subject with somebody?
Yeah. Well, how did you approach it yesterday?
Head on.
Head on.
You and I have a special relationship, though.
I know it. And you have access to my calendar, so I can't hide. You have total access to my Yeah, I mean, I think depending on the personality, you can directly talk to somebody about it and just say, "Hey, I've noticed this. What's going on, and what are some? Do you want to talk about some ideas that we could talk about some ideas to help you decide if there's some stuff you can get rid of?" I think that's a really good approach. That's what you did. And actually, it was a good conversation. I think we probably talked about it for about 20 minutes. That's a long time to talk about something that personally I wasn't even tracking about, to sit down and go, oh, yeah, okay, that's good. And that really helped. And actually, I feel 100% better today. So I think that does really work. If people are a little too maybe indirect is a better approach for some personalities, if you feel like they're more sensitive or what have you. And I think you can still do the same thing, but just in a gentle way. Are you doing okay? I just sense that you're just fried. Is there anything I can help with? Just being there and support is a huge, huge help.
Yeah.
It just is.
Sometimes people, a lot of times you'll say, how can I help? Right. And people are, I don't want to like burden anybody, or if you're feeling burnt out, you don't want to put that on somebody else.
Right.
Sometimes techniques of just like, hey, I'm going to go grab you lunch today. Or, what are some
that's really
just simple actions you can do without even asking?
Yeah.
When you're in that like throes of burnout, to me, it starts with like setting limits, or what can you remove? Right. That's exactly what I asked you yesterday. What thing can you stop doing?
Actually, you asked me 3 times. You asked me that. Not once, 3 times. Because I ignored you the first 2. Or I gave you excuses about how I couldn't ignore any of them.
But that's a great question to ask. What is something I can stop doing?
Yes.
Because a lot of times it's the workload, and it's not the workload that you love doing that usually causes the burnout. It's the workload that you really, like you said, struggle doing, or takes a lot of energy to do, like your detail work. And you can do it for a little while, but you can't do it for a sustained period, and that's what's going to cause burnout. And obviously, that, and you're on a good track.
Well, also, so this article offered a way to take an inventory, which I thought was very helpful, because I think we don't think about it in terms of specificity. When we get overwhelmed, or like when I get tired, exhausted, the last thing that I'm going to be able to do is identify specifically what it is. I might throw something at it and say, oh, I'm just this, or I'm that, or there's too much going on. But looking at it from this article's perspective, I thought was super interesting. So what they did is they took all of those 6 sources that they listed. So again, it was your workload, your values, connecting work to your on a deeper level, your reward, so level of rewards you're getting, control, your autonomy in your role, fairness, are you treated equitably, and then community, which is professional relationships. They said take those 6 categories, and you can do a less than 2-minute check-in in which you make a scale of 0 to 10. Okay, 0 is negligible; it's just it's not a thing at all. 10 is extreme stress, and to just inventory each one of those things specifically for a total score of 60. And what you can do then is you can see you're
I'm
smiling
just wondering
at
if
me.
you
Stop
did it.
grinning.
I want to know.
I did.
Yes.
No, I did. I
And?
did. I did do it. So it's saying it's not really important what the total number is, but to notice where the high numbers are in those 6. Like that's the most critical. And for me, every single one of those was absolutely fine except workload.
Yeah, workload was too high.
Yeah. Like all the other stuff is like 100%. It's negligible for me. All of that. I feel so pleased about all of that. That actually made me feel really good because it does validate the conversation you and I had yesterday.
That
it was validating for me.
It's more workload and it's probably more exhaustion than burnout. And then you can focus specifically on your workload.
Yep. Right. Exactly.
Yep.
Which I am doing.
Awesome.
Because I don't want to get in trouble for that. Just kidding. I'm such a brat. How come I can't just take feedback?
I did not do that. I did not do your 2-minute burnout checkup. No.
You did it?
I'm fine.
Okay. Well, I hope this is helpful for people because I just think, it's always just a really good, whenever we can find some really, easy way or create awareness about something and then some sort of easy way to take an inventory. I just think that's so helpful.
Yeah, and we always say like these check-ins, right? You say it all the time, like take your own inventory. That's where I called you a hypocrite because you weren't doing that yesterday. And
I haven't been doing that for weeks.
You've been too busy. But this is a great thing to do. Just even, from a work perspective, you could like put it on your calendar quarterly and just say, hey, I'm just going to check in with myself and see how I'm feeling.
Or even, like for me, when I'm physically tired because I'm sitting at my desk, that's a trigger. That's an indicator for me right there. It's like, oh, I'm physically tired from sitting here too long. Yeah. That's for me to pay attention.
You could also get yourself a burnout buddy at work, and then you could just check in with each other, every month. How are you feeling? You could go through this list.
That's a good idea.
You want to be my burnout buddy?
Idea. That's a really good idea. Sure.
Did you enjoy this episode? Please go to your favorite podcast platform to subscribe, rate, and leave a review so others can discover it as well.
Growing self-awareness is a lifelong journey, and there's always further to go. And it's better when we're all in it together. Please think of someone you know who could benefit from hearing today's conversation and share this episode with them. We can't thank you enough for listening. Until next time, happy exploring, seekers.